Okay, I'm going to start by having you say your name as it was in the Army and the year that you went into the 10th Mountain Division and the highest ranks.
The name is Samuel Meiselman, Meiselman. And I went in on February 8, 1943, and come out in the Army Hospital discharged August 28, 1945. And I changed my name legally after the war, and I heard about, and I was sent, when I got hurt, I was sent back on a hospital ship, and I was discharged in August of 45, and I missed the buddies. I never knew what happened to them after March 3rd. At that time, I got hurt on the hill that's over there, and I evacuated, and I lost contact with everybody. And we were very close-knit division, because the men trained from February 43 all the way through, and I was one of the early birds in Company A, 86, A prime. A prime became B, and B prime became C, and then as the men came into the 10th Division, they were forming the 85th and Regiment, and I was put into the 85th Regiment, and then the 87th went to Kiska, and I was sent to the 90th. So they had three regiments, 85, 86, and the 90th. And when the 87th came back from Kiska, I was a replacement into the 87. And that's all I heard about was Kiska this, and then they were all, and they had Japanese souvenirs and all that, and I missed my buddies from May coming, and I became an 87, and nobody liked the 87 and the 80 because they macho man. They did Kiska and they did this, and the 85th was nothing. Now we're veterans, even though they didn't do any shooting, but that beside the point. I was an 87. I was a marked man, and if you notice, most of the fighting was done by the 85th and 86 took a shellac. And if you look at the battle record, the 87 caught hell too, because I had my share of it as much as I did. Now I'm starting to wander from all this. But what does he want to know now?
How did you come to be in the 10th?
It's a Pearl Harbor Day. I worked for Western Union on a point in the Bronx, and I got a call. We need you at the office. Nobody knew what was really going on, and I wound up delivering telegrams to report back to your base. And at that time, I was making 30 cents an hour for Western Union, and I helped my father in a candy store. So I worked at night, 4 to 8. But that Sunday, I delivered telegrams as they came in all over, report back to your base. And I said to another guy, look, I'm wearing a uniform, and it won't be long now, I'll be changing. So this Polish fellow, Bankowski, Stanley, gets a hold of me. We're going to show the Japs, we're macho, and the wind-up was he got me drunk on a bottle of beer all night long. He purposely did it till 4 o'clock in the morning. We went up to the draft board, and he marched me in, and he joined the Marines, paratrooper. I said, you're good. Because I was strong, I had good legs, bicycling all the time. And the wind-up was I chickened out. I said, I got 4 sisters, and I have to help my family. And I told them I'm going to get into something tougher than the Marines. And I didn't know of any 10th Mountain Division at the time. Nobody really knew it. And I worked on an engineering company making pipelines, making oil refineries, Lomas. I was an office boy training to be a draftsman. And I had engineering training via the blueprints and stuff. I went out for lunch, and I seen a sign, volunteers wanted the National Ski Patrol. And I grew up in New Jersey, and I remember having $1 pair of Sears Roebuck skis, and I skied on a hill on a golf course. And I really liked what I did. And I went upstairs to see what it was all about. And Minnie Dole, the father of the 10th, who told me what I had to do, and I filled out the papers. I knew I was going to go in, and I wound up in the 10th Mountain Division. And it's all part of the macho bit of being a Marine, and that's how I wound up. And went to Camp Upton. I was the only one shipped out to Colorado. Everybody else went to a different part. And then we got up to high altitudes at 10,000 feet, and the band was playing, and three soldiers got off, and snowing like heck. And for the next year or so, I was a stand-in for a snowman. It snowed every day. After a while, it's just part of the thing. And Partridge remembers the name Meiselman. He's the only guy that remembers the name Meiselman. And he's in the same company, A company. I said, I remember you. And now I have a problem with recalling because of the disability that I had from getting concussion. Even when I stammer, it's all still in me from the war. So you take it from there.
Well, I know you were looking for a rugged experience. It sounds like you wanted to get it in.
Well, I wanted to show up my buddy.
Was it tough enough for you?
More than the Marines. I'd rather jump out of a plane to go through the training, the D series, and the freezing, and the cold, and the high altitudes. Although I made it, I was very young and strong. I mean, you couldn't beat me. I was in the best shape of my life there at the time. It was a great bunch of guys. We were trained by. I was one of Togo's guys, where they wore the white band around. Even though they taught officers how to ski too. It didn't matter then, and it was so cold in that barrack. The A company they couldn't go out. We didn't have the equipment. The division was playing it by ear. Everything in the book was the manual. There was no such thing. This country always had flatland infantry. And one of the basic reasons they lost so many men in Anzio and Salerno, the German mountain division, they had 14 mountain divisions, and they knew what they were doing. This country never had it. So
Tell me a little bit about Torger.
About who?
Tell me a little bit about Torger Toko.
I don't remember too much about it. I just remember that you had, we call them the torture boards, and there was 6-foot wood, and it's like a 2x4 on your foot in the beginning. And the problem, they didn't have breakaway bindings at the time. If your foot goes, you go where the ski goes. If it goes to the right, your whole ankle turns to the right. And if you fall and snap, that's how you break. On the modern day ski, they have it comes right out of your thing. You save yourself. And then you do the manual arms, the right face, and you put the ski in the snow, and you do the pole, and you turn around and lift. It's a whole routine. And you start out with the snow plow, then the stem turn, and then the Christie. And the qualification was Cooper Hill. You had to go down, all the way down. You had guys with checking you out to see how good you were. And the reason I really learned to ski, I got tired of falling. I said, it's easy to learn. Stop kidding yourself. And I was a ball player. I played a lot of baseball with the old Rockets. In those days, we didn't have Little League, and I'm still a baseball fan. Anyhow, that was my training as a kid that made me qualify for athletics in skiing, and I qualified going down that whole thing. And then it was a whole experience.
How did serving in the 10th Mountain shape you?
Well, I knew I was with a bunch of the fellas from New England were a high IQ. You could tell that they're mama's little boys. They didn't experience working for a living like I did. I was out in the street when I was 15, and I worked all my life. But being in the highest, I knew it was going to be tough to get a raise. And I wasn't much of a leader anyhow. I mean, it's taking responsibility. But I did. I let them be the chief, and I was one of the Indians, and I did my job, and PFC.
What were you thinking when you did your job?
Well, it's don't fight it, go along with it. You can bitch and moan all you want; it ain't gonna do you no good. There's always a kitchen. There's always something. That's something, you know. But it was I was always a good comic, telling jokes and I was a upbeat guy, and that's why I think one of the reasons they kicked me out of A company and B company. We'll get rid of him, send him to the 90th, they can use him, and I come back to and then I tell myself they wanted to get rid of me altogether with my jokes. So they put me in the demolition A&P platoon, ammunition pioneer, and that's why. Only because I've had the engineer training on maps and blueprints and things like that. I knew that I could read a blueprint and I could read a minefield, and I had my wits about me of handling ammunition because.
Well, how did you use those skills in the war? Tell me about some memorable experience.
Well, the skills came from knowing that. Well, we were trained to blow minefields. I don't have the recall of it, but there were engineers, one division. We were trained by the engineers, but we were right on the next to the infantry. So if there was a problem, they sent for the A&P, which is only 30 men in a platoon. There was only one platoon to a regiment. And in the headquarters company, they had we barracks together. But anyhow, the experiences I had was seeing that the rifle company, my battalion, LM and KLM, got the equipment. Now, the 81 mortar shells, the 30 caliber, the grenades, cases and cases of ammunition had to be near the front. Every day, the men would go back. On the road to Belvedere, they had mountains of ammunition stacks along the road. And it was up to the Alpinis or us to bring it up, and bring it up close as you could. And if you got into a firefight on Belvedere, they used up the stuff. You can't carry so much. And it's up to the runners of each company to come back and see me or one of the other guys. And my one experience is we had ammunition all around us, and we had to stay at night, and we stood there with a rifle, and he's facing one way and I'm the other way. And at night, the runners would come in, and they had to know the password. It couldn't be a German coming in on us. And they'd give them the 30 caliber, and they'd go out. But you stayed alert. And then when the 80, later on, when the mortar, they lost men, they found their location. And once you're pinned in, zeroed in, you're going to get it. Boom, 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 and it's over with. You splattered all over the place. Anyhow, they needed ammunition and ammunition. They had no runners. Put the stuff on your back and backpack it, because the 90-pound rucksack, you load up whatever you could, and I went up through the artillery, whatever the hell it is. And I never knew this, but years later, I got the Bronze Star. And when I opened it up, on the back of the star, it says Meiselman, 327-869. I don't remember getting it. I don't remember how I did it. And then it tells a little story about it. But to me, it was a great honor. And I because of the concussion, I was disoriented, and I don't remember all the stuff. But years later, I got that. So, and I think that's one of the things I did. But I was very active. And I lasted 12 days. March 3rd is when my number came up, because the Germans wanted this area back. And the engineers we were putting in some kind of a bridge. And I don't even remember. I was only told all this. But I do have recall of certain little things. And once you get caught in a bad situation, it's just like watching a 4th of July display on fireworks going off, and you just hope nothing comes near you. But they got you. Because we lost 195 guys. This guy got wounded. My sergeant got killed. This guy, and I trained with 3 Mexican guys, Ramirez and Butterball, we used to call him. He got killed. And another. After a while, you're just looking out Uno number 1. I learned Italian. But I was a good soldier. I even though I kidded around, I was dedicated to the 10th. And when I got back to the United States, believe it or not, we were the initial group of guys that started the 10th Mountain Division, alumni. We met in New York City in a school, and Arnold Hollywell, Reva, not Evans, it's Carter, Byron Carter, and how the association came about. The people from New England got tired of coming down into New York for the main meeting. They started the individual chapters, and the breakaway went all the way out to Rocky Mountain, and which is fantastic, and it grew into a big thing. But I'm one of the original ones. I was there for the dedication of the division, so I have 10th Division blood going through me. When I got to Italy, maybe the vino went through me, but I never got a chance.
What was worse, D series or battle?
D series, I remember freezing. I remember moving. After a while, you just go along with it. You don't fight it. Just do the best. Survive is the word. Survive. The battle, they kept us down. If you think we knew about Riva Ridge, nobody. They kept what the left hand. In case you get captured by the Germans, you wouldn't know what the hell was going on. They kept you dumb. You just know what was going on in your little section. You take this, and the A squad, B squad, anyhow. And that was one of the reasons I didn't find out about Riva Ridge till after the war. I didn't know all the history. I learned all this stuff, what was going on. I only knew what was going on in my area. And that I can say that for most 10th men. They only knew what was in front of them. It was up to the headquarter guys to know the overall picture. But I do remember the searchlights. I don't know if you knew this or not, but at night for the week or 2 weeks, you see searchlights going across the skyline, all the way up and down. And what that was for? To confuse the Germans, because the scouts were up on Riva Ridge putting in the pitons a week or two ahead of time, looking for trails to go up ridge. And the light from the reflection of the moon or the sun would hit the clouds and give the men who were a chance to see what the hell they were doing. And that all helped out. And then during the Belvedere, I can still remember the planes coming in, dropping their bombs over there. They looked like little, from a distance. And I just did what I had to do. And we went up at night at 11 o'clock and loaded with ammunition. Jesus, I was a mule. I was a human mule for the Army. But I was strong. And we had guys, we kept the battalion. Any bullet that was fired at the Germans came to our platoon in the 3rd Battalion. Mortar shells, whatever. So I gave the kiss of death to those guys, which I did my job.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about the circumstances that led up to your injury?
What led up to my injury? Well, first of all, we were night and day. You don't remember. You just live on whatever you can, and. What I do remember is taking the K-ration, the paper, in the corner. We tried to heat up a can of food, whatever it was, and that's the last thing I remember. The shell came in and blew the building apart, and guys got killed. And I don't even know who, what, or what. They found me wandering around. I was staggered around, and I was firing my rifle, and they, what the hell is he firing? And, I didn't know what the hell. In my mind, I must have. I don't. That's what the morning report says. They said, take him, he's whacked out already, he's disoriented. And I was taken off the line. Usually they take a shell shock or a person like that, they take him 2 weeks behind the line, quiet him down, give him a shower, give him new clothes, and if he's okay, send him back up. But I must have been real deep because they sent me further back, and I wound up in Leghorn, the hospital, and I made up this story. But this part, I was in the hospital, but they're walking wounded. They took us out to show us the Leaning Tower, and it was exciting for a kid, you heard about it. But after the war, I said, yeah, I saw the Leaning Tower, and it looked straight to me. I was the one who was tilted. And I come back, now I tell the story when I come back, I look at the Leaning Tower, and I point to it and I say, there's something wrong with that tower, it's leaning. So I have not stood straight now. I'm making jokes about it, but it was no joke at the time. And I came back from Leghorn to Rome to Naples, and once I knew you were finished, they gave you medicine, phenobarbital or some damn thing, and I was put on a hospital ship, and was sent to the United States, and all the mental cases were in the lower part of the ship. The wounded were up on top, and the ship blew an engine or something because it took 20 or 30 days to get across the ocean. And guys were dying up there because they couldn't get them across faster. Today they fly them right over. But we lost men that way. But I remember eating three across, and the table would be hooked up, and they lowered the table down, and everybody ate with a spoon, no knives, no forks. And each one was different. We were all, not 10th Division, it was 92nd. We had black guys from the 92nd Buffalo, and I got into a fight with a guy, and a black guy, because and a Navy corpsman grabbed the two of us, and there was such a thing as a brig on the ship. They put me, and I'm in the back in a padded cell. I said, Jesus, I must be really nuts. And the ship is going up and down, and then when he got to South Carolina, I was put into a hospital then. And then you want to hear all that?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, do you have much tape left?
Yeah, I'm good. I have a question now, which is when you went back to South Carolina, North Carolina?
No, that's when the ship landed in South Carolina.
The ship went back, but then the war was over, and
that
was it, right? You never had to go back.
No.
That was done, right?
That was over with. I was finished with it. I got a medical discharge from the Army. But where they could see, this is the sad part of my life, because when the hospital train, from South Carolina all the way to New York City, the Penn Station, they had Red Cross on the trains, and then a fleet of ambulances taking the guys to different hospitals. And I was sent out to the hospital. It was the Pilgrim State Hospital for the New York State mentally thing, and the Army took it over. They called it Mason General Hospital, and that's where all the nerve cases come. And it didn't take me long to bounce back, but they gave me electric shock treatment, and that's where the memory come. I don't know what the hell they were doing to me, but you'll be all right. Just lay on the table and bing, and they numb the brain. They don't do that anymore to the soldiers. See, the Vietnam guys are getting treated. They learned from the experience from shell shock World War I. This one, now they talk it out of them in group therapy and drugs to slow you down. But that's why I changed direction in my talking and everything else. And then the post-stress disorder came out from the Vietnam War. A lot of these guys in the tent that are here today, if you listen to them, you can spot it. I can spot it right away who's not playing, who's out in left field, right field, just by the way they talk and how they talk. And I was in the hospital with these guys, and then I got discharged. And in those days, with 11 million people coming out of the war, and they didn't know it, and I fumbled my way all through. And it's only lately that I found out what the hell is, who's on first, what's on second.
Could you pause for a second? Yeah. I'd like to ask something about that.
The things I used to say, well, geez, I must have went off my rocker in Italy. Actually, I didn't go crazy. I was induced with the trauma of the concussion, and I tell people, oh, I get 50% disability today. I was 100% because I couldn't hold the job. The noise would get me. Something would get me, and the anxiety. I had to be on my own. And I'll be 80 years old, September 3rd, and I'm a survivor. But still, a lot of guys walk around, even the Vietnam guys, they're all, any veteran has it in them. And I try to help. When I tried to help Gene had his head in the sand. I told him, I brought a lot of people to the VA to get help, and because it's coming to them. But I'm changing subject. I'm going all over the place.
What I would like to know is, when you were carrying the ammunition up, that was Belvedere. Do you know when you got injured and was
No, not exactly. But I got through Belvedere, which is the 18th and 19th, and I kept going. I was doing what I can't remember exactly from there until March 3rd. It's all blanked out. And the only reason I knew about all this stuff because I get flashbacks from time to time, even when I was telling you about burning the matches, and I can remember giving out the ammunition. That's only two things I remember. But I do know from the morning reports, which Embry and all those people searched it out, and there's my name, Meiselman. And Berlin, the guy killed in action. If you read the morning reports, you can see the different people you interviewed, and that's where I got it. And Punchboard Hill. Who
else died at Punchboard Hill?
Anybody in that area got their bell rung, and that's where that area, that March 3rd, you look in the book somewhere around in there, and whoever the 87th was, 3rd Battalion, I had to be there because I stayed with the thing, and Walter Praga was my first sergeant, and I asked him what happened to me after the war, and he says Meiselman called me. I don't really talk with an accent, but he can't recall. But the morning reports show, and I just don't know. I just did my job, and I did a hell of a job. I didn't have the responsibility of a corporal sergeant, but I was doing the work of two people because I knew what the hell was going on. One other thing. I did get to fire my rifle at the Germans. I remember not too. Whoops. See? I'm sorry.
These are tippy.
Yep.
That's good. That's nice.
My fault. I'm getting loopy.
Nice to have a brace.
Glad
there.
you had a brace. Okay.
Yeah. No, but there was a time we were moving up, and somebody opened up on us, and about 6 or 7 of them are flat on the prone position, laying, firing away at this one, all shooting at this one direction to get this guy. And he must have popped his head up. One of us must have got him, but we moved up then, and we were going uphill, and that's all I remember firing. And I'm glad at the fact that I got to use the M1. But we did carry weapons, even though A&P platoon. We always had a weapon. But we did our thing. And each one of us had assignments in the headquarters company. When you see headquarters 3rd, I'm not with the generals or the officers. each regiment has a headquarters. They're assigned to assist each battalion, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd battalion. Our job in the 3rd battalion as an A&P is to see that the 3rd battalion got their ammunition. The communications stayed with the 3rd battalion, and the INR, the scouts were trained. But we all lived in one barrack, and so we got to know each other, and sometimes we would train each other by orders, of course. But demolition is a skill in itself. But you know how to blow a minefield with a Bangalore torpedo, or shoot a mortar shell in there, or do something to blow up the field. I was well trained, and I just hope I did a good thing.
Did your training from Hale come in handy?
It got you familiar with the noise and the infiltration course, and the fact that I was a demolition man. I handled dynamite, and as a kid, my old man owned the candy store. We used to sell fireworks, so I handled fireworks then as a kid, 8, 10 years old, and we kept them in the basement of the store. If that would have went up, the store would have went up. But on 4th of July, people would stop by with their cars. It was legal then. In 1928, 27, and I was familiar with ammunition, powder, you know. Mm-hmm. So, and as for mules, in my town, we had horse and wagons that delivered coal, and I knew the guy who owned the barn, and he took me in there. We used to take care of the horses. So he'd give us free rides if you cleaned the horse. So when I got around the mules in Colorado, it was no problem. And I make a joke. I'm so related to mule. My name is Samuel. That's funny, man.
Now I have a question for you, and this is a personal question. You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But did you know anything about the Holocaust at that time?
No.
And were you concerned about being captured?
No, I didn't realize at the time. I knew that I had an H on my dog, Meiselman. The tag, the army was stupid. Not stupid, but they did it for religious. They had the Catholic, the C on the stamped on the door. I had a H, Hebrew, and the blood type O. But if the Germans would have got you, they would have wasted no time. Maybe, but I didn't think of it at that time. I just knew that I was one of the bad guys as far as the Germans were concerned. And if I quit the line, the MPs would have got me. So I had no choice. I didn't even think of it. I was all gung-ho. I was 10th Mountain all the way. And I did a great job as far as I'm concerned. I'm proud of the fact of the other guys. And I didn't realize how much action the 10th Division saw. I'm telling you, they were one-on-one, right up there. Somebody has to do it. And the old story, it takes 3 to take a mountain, 1 to get killed, 1 to get wounded, and 1 to tell the story. I got 2 out of 3. So I didn't do bad.
Sam, can you think of anything else you want to say?
Well, I'm very proud of the
I just have this effect on people.
No, it's not that. I'm getting emotional. That's the post-stress. And that's, I have to catch my breath a little bit. But the 10th is a great outfit, and we showed the way. I think one of the things that all the rest of us, we didn't want this country to get caught short again without special forces. And because of what the German Mountain Division, what they did to our guys, we smartened up America.
The end.
Excellent.
Good.